Opposing Gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about navigation. Let's get right to it. This navigation will be a little bit more advanced navigation. I'm going to try and improve your workflow at light speed. So to start off, if you hold down Control and scroll your mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out where your mouse is horizontally. So you say, oh, horizontal zooming, how great. Instead of coming up here and moving this freaking thing or moving these guys around. It's just super annoying and a waste of time when you have a tool like that. A lot of these are going to rely on a mouse wheel. So I hope you have one. Next up, let's say that you have zoomed in like so, and you're like, crap, I didn't want to do that. Or all your tracks have changed. And well, this is for all your tracks. So what you do is you hold down Alt and you could scroll up and down horizontally. The only other way to do this really is to go like that. And that is like you're reaching way over there. You can't even move this guy up and down. It won't let you. So it's just annoying. So you can do that and that fixes it. I think it's because they can be at different track heights. And so maybe it complicates the way that works. I don't know. But usually there's reasons for stuff like that. Okay, so Alt and this is Control, so it zooms where your mouse is. Very, very handy dandy way of zooming into your project. Now there's another one. If you hold down your middle mouse wheel, you push it, it will allow you to pan. This is called visual panning, and what it is it allows you to go short distances. So if you have a project file, let's just say that you've got like said project file that's like enormously big, and if you move this guy, you see that it's very sort of not super fluid as far as it could just be a pain trying to get small distances out. So you can just use your mouse wheel, middle mouse wheel button, click thing, and it will move you there. It will move you there. So it's really, really great for that reason, especially when you have projects that are in the several hundred measures range, because that's when I really started. I was like, there's got to be a better way, and I found this. So that's pretty cool. Now, really quick, a secret menu. I've mentioned this before, but every time I mention it, someone is usually like, what? So if you push your middle mouse button and left click, so you got to do it kind of quick, it'll bring up this menu, which is in many ways much faster than reaching up here and digging through these menus, which is the same thing. So you can come down here and do that. So very handy. Now, whoop, I gave my secret away. Okay, so let's say that you have said project file. If you hold down Shift with the pencil tool and click, it'll act as the brush tool. So let's say that you have a project file that's like pretty big and you need to navigate it, and you can do this and the zoom in and out thing, but that is like, it's all this extra, like you're constantly going like this and like this and like this. It's friggin' annoying. So there's a better way. What you could do is you can hold down Control, and then you right mouse click. So left mouse click will select, right? But let's say you need to zoom in somewhere. Well, you could zoom in, hold down left mouse click. You could zoom in on an area like so, and then you simply hold down Control and just simply the right mouse click. It's right mouse click. You right mouse click, it'll zoom you in. You can keep going. But if you want to zoom back out to the full view, you just simply hold down Control and just click it once, and it will bring you back to your entire track so you can see it in its entirety. So if we were to add like, I don't know, some extra stuff over here, and we were to hold down Control and right mouse click, it would bring that into view. And you see this project is like pretty big. We're at like 250 measures or something like that. So you're like, oh, but I want to only measure I only want to, edit this part. So you could get a quick ballpark view by going like this, and then you can simply pan and scroll where you need, and then you can zoom back out. Usually you're working in sections, but occasionally you're going to want to do this. So it's very, very useful to have. Now, additional navigation things. I've already talked about the F keys in previous videos, but in case you were not there, you can hit F5 to bring up your playlist. F6 will bring up your channel rack. You can select a channel, via wherever the green light is. And if you hit F7, it'll bring up the piano roll for that channel. Now I know I'm throwing out keys, but F8 is of course your, what is that? The plug-in picker. And then F9. And now that's another thing. And then F10 brings up, I actually find myself using F10 quite a bit. F10 and F11 will bring up your settings so it's project settings and MIDI settings, which I come in here all the time for. So one thing that okay, let's go back to the sequencer. So I hit F5. Now those are covered in previous examples of workflow. but those are just so worth memorizing. Like the plugin picker on 3, go check that one out for how to load plugins like really freaking quickly. Because I used to do this and go through this list, and sometimes I will, especially in this list because it stays pretty much the same. But it's so much faster. Just hit F8 and then type in like harm, and then boom, Harmer pops up, and bang, you're running and rolling instead of going Harmer, and then that was pretty quick. But you'll find yourself getting stuck all the time. Okay, now let's talk about this. Now let's say that your cursor's right here. How can you manipulate your cursor? Well, you can, as you see, your arrow keys are not being any help. But if you hit home and end, we bring this into focus. Arrow keys will move you up and down like so, which is okay, which is another option that for incremental scrolling, especially if you're zoomed in, this can be very useful as well. But usually you have your hand on your mouse, but you can also hit home and end, and you see it moves your cursor. And where did it just move it? So it moves it, you can move it to the home. If you make a selection and you hold down control to select and you hit home, it will get rid of your selection. And now the other thing you can do is if you hit page up and page down, it will also zoom you in. I'm actually not super familiar with the way the transport itself works in here by going back and forth, but I believe those are your patterns. In Pro Tools, you can use the keyboard to act as a transport control. But in FL, I find myself hardly ever using this. I almost always come up here and click because it's just really simple. Like it just is. I'm sure there's a way though. As you can see, I like don't use it though. So it's not part of my workflow yet, but maybe you guys have something that is part of your workflow. But that's basic navigation. Now here's a couple other tricks. I did cover them in others. So if for whatever reason, if you watch the other ones, this may not be worth your time, but hey, reviews are always good too. So you change your keyboard focus, of course, by either clicking on it or clicking the keyboard shortcut that is associated with it. So, oh, this is a big one for navigation. Let's say, you see how this is on top? I don't want it to be on top. Well, you can hit it. You see it's been detached. And so you need to undo that. That'll allow Windows to float. But another thing about detached is you can do it and you can just hit D. You see these little dots under here? That means that if you hit D, it will activate this. So hit D. Now it has been detached. It floats on top. But I can now move it to external windows and I can see it on that external window. Another thing for navigation wise, if you hit the background at any time, it will always bring up your channel rack unless something has been detached. For example, see, it does not bring up my channel rack, but if it'll move it to the front of everything that's not detached. So detached is a big deal. Now, if you double click the top of anything, it will always fill up your window. Well, not always. For here, this will minimize it because plugins have a separate protocol that tells the program how to interpret its size. So, and sometimes it can be super annoying, just so you know. You can also alternatively hit enter and it will fill up your screen. So if we were to if it's a vectorial plugin, this will work as well. So if you're on the mixer, you can hit Control E to bring up your editor, which if you use FL, your audio editor by default will be Edison, and you can hit enter and it will fill up your screen like freaking big because it's vectorial. Let's see another vectorial plugin do this. Let's do wonder if it'll work with Citrus. So you hit F8 to load a plugin, type in Cit for Citrus, and now hit enter. Nope, it doesn't. It'll minimize it. Does an experiment, but it works with a number of tools, like the mixer, for example. Bang! Now you can mix, and then when you're done mixing, instead of shrinking your mixer and going back and working on something else, which is in Pro Tools, this is the way you pretty much have to work. You use the key command Control equals, but in this one, you would simply hit F5 and you can bring up your playlist. Oh, it brings it into focus. Never mind then. F5. No, it works. I don't know what I'm talking about. So you see how I moved it to the background? So now we can work here when we want our mixer gain. You just hit F9. Now, they have their mixer in sort of a nice compact view, though. That makes it much more friendly for a just clicking to get to what you want type of thing. But if you have a lot of windows open, it can be super annoying. If you do have a lot of windows open, you can hit F12 and it will close all your windows except your channel rack for some reason. I don't know what the deal is with that. And so now you could just bring up windows as you see fit and go ahead and start navigating, and it's much simpler to do. If you go to your channel rack, you can select multiple channels, and if you want to send them to your mixer, you can hit Control Shift L. Make sure, and they've already been selected and sent, but as you can see, oh, you know what? Here they are. Okay, so we're going to add these guys to our mix, right? And so they have not been assigned a mixer track, and so what we're going to do is we're going to do that. So you come to your mixer track, and you say, hey, I want to send these guys here. And to do this, you hit Control Shift L, and you see now they pop up. Bang. If you want to send it to a new track, simply hit Control L, and it will send it to its own new track. You see that the previous track it was on, though, is still there. So you do need to pretty much set it back to default. And it's like so. It's not the exact same color, but you can save a color scheme and stuff. You hold down Shift and click to bring up the name in color. And there's even ways to, I think it's like page up, page down, home, end. One of them will allow you to scroll through the colors themselves too, which is kind of handy dandy if you use that consistently, because then you can just have the same colors on all your stuff. Or alternatively, you could have just a color palette that you can set up and make that a thing that you use consistently as well, which I encourage for workflow purposes. Like, for example, my vocals are always purple. My drums are always orange. Guitars are red. That's just the way I roll. It's more important for me in Pro Tools than it is in FL, because in FL, I'm doing all this crazy sound design production stuff. Another quick thing, if you select your browser, which hit Alt F8, Alt F8. You can hit Control F and it'll bring up your smart search so you can look up things like that. Alternatively, you can select a snap setting, and wherever you're opened, it will now save that snap setting. So you have a snap options up here, and I actually have this a little bit wrong. I said you had to control click it to save it. It'll just save wherever you're at. And to access different snap settings, you simply hit the row of keys, the numbers above your letters, not the numeric keypad on the side. You got to hit those numbers. So we have 8. If I hit 7, it'll bring me to 7. And you see it's changed my snap setting. If I hit 8, it'll bring me back. And I can open it up to some new spot, and it will save this location. So now this is where 8 will save. So if I hit 7, it'll open there. 8 will bring me back there. So if you're going to set one of these, generally, you're going to want to have it somewhere that you're not going to change and dig through other things. You want to have it isolated for a specific purpose, or it kind of loses its purpose and power. But again, you have the Alt F and then Control F. Alt F also works, but it's just a general search, and it will search more files, taking up more time. So you don't necessarily want that. When you do search for something, like say we search for hi-hat, which last time I spelled it as H-I-G-H, which was a mistake. And it will look and say, oh, there's a hi-hat. You can hit F3 and F2 to go back and forth in your search results. So it's next, 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 or F2 to go back, 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 back. And that is that. Now, there's loads of additional shortcuts I could show you, but I believe those are the ones that are pertinent to navigation. I will be going over mixer shortcuts and piano roll shortcuts and workflows. That's the other big deal. But I just want to show you all the different ways you can do this, as well as if you hit F5 to bring up your playlist. We're going to be looking at the playlist probably next, because there's some really cool options we have here. And oh yeah, if you hold down Control, you could select tracks like that, or you could do that. It's up to you. And again, you could zoom in and be like, oh yeah, we're back to a beginning with some reasonable size settings. If you hold down Control and move up, down. Okay, so a note about the Control setting, because I use this intuitively, but Control is usually... What the heck is going on here? My Alt and Control has been reversed. Oh, I'm thinking of zooming. My bad. Zooming, it'll work. Now check this out, okay? If you hold down Control, you can zoom left. This is really cool. And I honestly, it's like, I use this all the time, but it's just weird to explain because I've never showed anyone else basic stuff like this, really. Where you hold down Control and you can zoom in and out. But if you push your mouse wheel, it'll scroll you up and down, which is something that some people, they use Alt to do that. And if you do, so it flips the function, your mouse wheel does. So if you do Alt and then you hit mouse wheel, it'll scroll you left to right. Now you see the scroll isn't quite the same. It's more of like a stable pan. I don't even know. But yeah, it's not the same as zooming where your mouse wheel is. So it's a little different. But this, now you'll notice that this resizes all your tracks just the same as this would too. So it's pretty much the same thing. But holding your mouse wheel will basically flip the function of your thing. Yes. I'm pretty excited to show you the mixer stuff because I've seen a number of people just waste freaking time going on the mixer, doing mixer things. Okay, a couple other things. So if you are, it just occurred to me, this is very navigation savvy. If you have a numeric keypad, if you hit 1, it'll bring up pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you go, you could go up to 9, and then after that, you're kind of stuck. Well, if you hit plus and minus, it'll open those. At that point, it's not super useful. You'd have to basically right click and select your pattern. Or yeah, right click, select your pattern, and you can do that. I'm leaving the loading plugins to the plugins video there. But again, you can load them there, or you can hit F8 to get to your plugin picker and just type in what you want. You see me load up a couple plugins. So another thing about this, if you hit, what is it, star? Never mind. I can't remember the keyboard shortcut I was about to show you. But I've seen people all the time do this. For a new keyboard shortcut, I believe F4 will do it. And you can add a new keyboard and you can name it. So you'd be like name. And then if you want to go back, so that's 2. If we go to 1, 2 will be named from now on. So you maybe consider naming your first patterns and using your first 9 patterns for things that you typically go back to and use, like perhaps melody, bass. This is like much more advanced stuff that even pro producers might not use because they just haven't taken the time to think about like how could they make their workflow insane. Because there's a point where you're an artist versus workflow. At what point is that like? Honestly, if you spend a little bit of time working on workflow and then you can spend the rest of your life being an artist, and it's great. So I think it's totally worth it. Another thing about this is if you hit, is it F2? F2 will rename. So F2 is rename. Oh, and F2 also lets you scroll through the colors. So you're going to F2 to scroll through your colors, and then you can name it like, oh, pattern 1 with a weird thing. And so now it has been colored. And so if we were to put down pattern 1, you could see pattern 1 and it is colored. If we could hit 2 and we could hit F1. Whoops, not F1, my bad. F2. And then we could color this one by hitting F2 to scroll through. And we could color that without changing the name. So on the pattern side of things, F2 is rename, and you could use it to scroll through your colors. F3 is file, which is not what we want. If we have our F3 should be new pattern. No, that's F4. F4 is new pattern. F4 is new pattern. F2 is rename. F3 will bring you to the file menu, and then you can use that to navigate up there, which is something that is also super useful. So you can come up here and do that. So yeah, that's a little bonus. Didn't anticipate sharing that one. Anyways, yeah, of course you can resize crap up here if you want, and you can, I encourage right clicking to see additional options because oftentimes there are additional options that you might not be aware of. But there you go. There's navigation. My goal of this was sort of to just throw a bunch of things at you and see what sort of stuck to you. I tried to toss stuff that was not as common because it's common. So the detached windows is a big deal. I use that all the time to keep things in focus when I want to see things, and just hitting D when you're in this mode does wonders. Another thing about this is I'll probably talk about global shortcuts maybe at some point. Maybe I won't, but just going through and looking at the keyboard shortcut list can help your life so much. So if you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe. If I got something wrong, or there's a better way, or you have some more efficient way, or you thought something I showed was dumb or whatever, or maybe you thought it was really cool. If you thought it was cool, like if you thought it was dumb, tell me what you thought was dumb, make yourself heard. That way people can also improve their workflows. Maybe you're like, hey, that's a cool option, but I find this more effective. Some of these I just showed you for the sake of options, because it's nice to just know what you have, because sometimes just knowing what you have will allow you to make more creative decisions. You can be like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And in this one particular case, I'm going to choose this that one time. But in all the other times, I'm going to use my mouse to select what I want, because why not just use the click to bring it up? Why would I waste my time moving my hand all the way to the F6 key, which is something that I want a keyboard that has the F keys a lot closer, so that it's just more handy dandy. This is not super handy dandy. Another thing real quick, I know I said I was done, but if you hit 1, 2, 3, and 4, they are different zoom settings for your project, which could be handy. Those are the keys above your keyboard. So you'll also, yeah, I'm going to stop right there. I'm stopping. If you have any questions, let me know. Support me on Patreon, subscribe, and have a blessed day. It was a sound design request originally. This is the original. So you can see I'm like there. There's a couple things that aren't quite nailed, like timbre. The rhythm took me freaking forever to figure out. I don't know why it took me so long to figure out the rhythm. This stuff is really touchy. And I tried to do a little bit of